Hello and merry etc. Now, the UK singles chart began in 1952. That means there have, including this year, now been 73 official Christmas number one singles. But it might interest you to know that of those 73, only 14, that's fewer than one in five, have been actual Christmas songs. Songs which specifically refer to Christmas, maybe have Christmas in the title. I am not including in that, incidentally, your kind of Christmas adjacent novelty hits. There's no one quite like Grandma's or Mr. Blobby's. I mean, actual specifically Christmas songs. Only 14, which means there have been 59 Christmas number ones, which are not specifically anything to do with Christmas. And indeed, some of them are really not very Christmassy at all, to the point where one can't help but wonder what was going through the mind of the record buying public that year. So here are the 5 least Christmassy Christmas number one singles ever. All right, we'll start with a very obvious one, 2009, Killing in the Name by Rage Against the Machine. I was in two minds as to whether or not to include this one, because this, of course, did not reach Christmas number one by means of some mysterious happenstance or some curious communal brain fart among the record buying public. No, this was the result of a concerted campaign. Those of you old enough to remember the noughties, and I realise that may not be all of you, and if you allow me, I'll just have to take a minute while I cogitate just how old that makes me feel. Basically, the ITV Saturday night pop talent shows, Pop Idol and then later the X Factor, kind of co-opted the Christmas number one for much of the noughties. They'd have their grand final in December, then announce the winner, release their victory single, almost invariably a thunderingly tedious inspirational ballad, and then this bit of sonic dead weight would just be allocated the Christmas number one for that year. In particular, the X Factor got it 4 years on the trot, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. Now, there had been an attempt to subvert this in 2008, when, if you may recall, that year's victory single, being Alexandra Burke's incredibly treacly cover of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, there was an attempt by concerned citizens to subvert the process by instead downloading Jeff Buckley's much more tasteful version of the same song, see if they could get that to Christmas number one instead. Alas, this was not successful. But of course, this was the beginning of the download era. A track did not have to be re-released as a single to get into the single charts. It did not indeed even have to ever have been available as a single. If it was up on iTunes, etc., as a downloadable track, if enough people downloaded it at the right time, then into the charts it went. Well, the next year, another campaign was mounted to thwart the rise of I can't even remember who won X Factor that year or what their single was, and life is way too short to Google it, by instead getting Killing in the Name by Rage Against the Machine to Christmas number one, this having been deemed an altogether more suitable anthem to rally around in a defiant manner, given that, as I'm sure most of you know, the second half of the song consists almost entirely of the refrain, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me," repeated over and over again. And lo and behold, this time it worked. And it's worth remembering that Rage Against the Machine played absolutely no part in this process. They were not consulted, they weren't even informed, and rumour has it they weren't particularly pleased. Okay, number 4, 1966, The Green Green Grass of Home by Tom Jones. Interesting fact, there were no Christmas song Christmas number ones in the 1960s. It just didn't happen. In fact, when Slade won the famous battle for the 1973 Christmas number one slot against Wizard, that was the first Christmas song to be Christmas number one since Harry Belafonte got Mary's Boy Chart to number one in 1957. And while we're doing trivia, Mary's Boy Chart is, unless you include the different iterations of Band-Aid, the only song which has been Christmas number one for 2 different artists, because Boney M got it back there in 1978. But of all the songs that were Christmas number one in the 1960s, you might think Green Green Grass of Home is a fairly harmless example, because as most people know, it's just a man reminiscing about the charming delights of his hometown. That is, the people who don't stick around until the last verse, when it turns out this is a condemned prisoner hallucinating about the charms of his hometown in his condemned cell just before they drag him off and hang him. Merry Christmas, folks. I've no idea why I did that. That's fascinating. Anyway. Number 3, Mad World by Gary Jules. All right, I know this was recorded for a film, specifically Donnie Darko, and it works very well in the film of Donnie Darko, but Who the hell hears Mad World by Tears for Fears and thinks, this song could do with being a bit more dreary? Try and take some of the spring out of its step, make it a bit less sugary and relentlessly upbeat. Seriously, the moment this utter, undiluted suicide juice made it to Christmas #1 in 2003, keeping Christmas Time Don't Let the Bells In by The Darkness, possibly the last great Christmas single, off the top spot, was the moment I stopped taking any interest in the pop charts. Number 2, 1981, Don't You Want Me Baby, The Human League. I know I mentioned this last time as one of those completely non-Christmas related songs which has somehow made its way into a lot of people's headcanon as a Christmas song because it just has very, very strong connections with the Christmas which it was #1 at. My God, that's a terrible sentence. Here's the thing. Human League were very resistant to this being released as a single because they thought it was too dark. And it is really dark, lyrically. It is about, or at least certainly appears to be about, a spurned, older, controlling male lover threatening vengeance against the younger female protege who has now rejected him. And the video starts off looking like, oh no, Phil Oakey's about to murder one of the girls with the fringes. And then, oh phew, it's a bunch of people making a movie about a guy who's going to murder his girlfriend. And then Adrian, the ginger one, who is just the lighting guy and wasn't actually in the band, is playing the editor, turns around and smiles at the camera tricks back, and the editing suites are set as well. Oh my God, it's a film within a film within a film. But what it isn't is Christmassy, is it? Let's face it. And the least Christmassy Christmas #1 of all time has got to be Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 by Pink Floyd in 1979, hasn't it? People tend to forget that this was a Christmas #1. No, trust me, I was there. It was. Even before you factor in the fact that this is the Christmas #1, this is a very, very weird record. First of all, it's a hit single by Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd didn't do hit singles. Secondly, it's a hit disco single by Pink Floyd. Silence Proggers, yes it is. Nick Mason is absolutely paying 4 to the floor. Dave Gilmour's riff is a sort of Nile Rodgers ying it kind of rhythm on the D minor. Now, okay, this was the time when white rock bands were dabbling with disco. This is around the time the Stones did Miss You and Kiss did I Was Made for Loving You. Rod Stewart did Do You Think I'm Sexy? Maybe it was inevitable that Pink Floyd were going to try and do something vaguely disco-esque. But the thing is, the oppressive atmosphere of this is such that at the time nobody really noticed it was disco, and even today when I point out to people that it's disco, they just kind of flatly refuse to accept it. And not only is this lyrically about the dehumanizing effect of the, specifically, I guess, British educational system, but this is depicted in the video, which of course is the only thing you got on Top of the Pops, because Floyd might put a single out, but they're not going to come and do it on the Pops. This is depicted in the most graphic terms with these really, really disturbing Gerald Scarfe animations showing this sort of monstrous mutant teacher either turning into a hammer and smashing his pupils to pieces, or indeed grabbing big handfuls of them and shoving them into a mincer. This is on Top of the Pops at Christmas. So yeah, my generation never really stood a chance now, did we? I was 9 at the time. You may have some opinions about the other 4, but I'm sorry, I'll take the Pepsi challenge on that one with anybody. That is the least Christmassy Christmas #1 ever released. But if you have any other alternative candidates, into the comments they go. All right, I hope you're having a good Christmas if Christmas is a thing you do. If you do something else, I hope you're having a good one of those. And if you're not doing a damn thing, I hope you're having a wonderful time doing that.
Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please hit like and share. If you'd like to see more, please hit subscribe. And if you'd like to help me make more, please visit patreon.com/MitchBenn.